Well, this week in Tallahassee, with the legislature gone, basically we're watching to see what Governor Scott does with the budget. He's got a couple of bills left to either sign or veto. One is a big elections bill. Remember back to the last election, we had long lines and some people didn't get to vote until late at night after we already knew who the president was. So the legislature sought to fix that this past session, and they've sent Governor Scott an elections bill that allows supervisors of elections in the counties to offer more early voting sites, more early voting days. It gives them some discretion. They don't have to, but it's interesting because it goes back the other way. After years of complaints by Democrats that Republicans were trying to make it harder to vote, now they're moving back the other direction. The governor has that bill on his desk, but the big one is the budget. He can sign the whole budget. He can veto the whole budget, extremely unlikely. I would say I would be about 99.99% sure he's not going to veto the whole budget because it's got teacher pay raises in it, $480 million, which he's already championing. It was something that he pushed for. So he's not going to veto the budget, but he has line item veto power. The budget is the only thing the legislature has to do. It contains everything from the 20-something billion dollars for Medicaid to the aforementioned $480 million for teacher pay raises, money for state worker pay raises, and even down to the little things that most people don't think about or realize are in the budget, from the money for the orange juice at the welcome centers on the interstates. That's in the budget, to money for things like bike trails, a Bay of Pigs Museum in Miami, even $500,000 for a marketing campaign to try to get Florida residents to stay in Florida when they take their vacation, to go to a Florida vacation site. So that's what we're watching for this week, see what Governor Scott does with the budget. He has the next couple of weeks to decide what to do, and that'll be big news when he makes a decision. So with the arrival of summer, we also start to look at elections. The campaigns begin once the legislature leaves town, and Governor Rick Scott wasted absolutely no time. The legislature was gone on a Friday, and on Monday, Governor Scott was out touring the state talking about the teacher pay raises that are part of the budget that lawmakers have sent him, and a bill that they've sent him that includes the authority to raise teacher pay, $480 million. They didn't do it exactly the way Governor Scott wanted. He wanted $2,500 across the board pay raises. The pay raises are going to be tied to merit, but a lot of teachers are going to get a pay raise, and that's what Governor Scott wanted. And so he's going around the state, and he's getting a lot of pretty positive TV coverage for that. And he also this week is going around the state touting his other big priority, which was a manufacturing tax break. Manufacturers don't have to pay sales tax on new equipment if they show certain benchmarks, like how much productivity will increase if they buy this new equipment. Well, what they did was they passed a bill that say they don't have to show that productivity increase. They just get the tax break. Puts Florida in line with a lot of other states. Governor Scott says it makes it a nicer place for Florida manufacturers and for would-be manufacturers, because after all, he's trying to get companies to come to Florida to increase jobs. So he's out talking around the state about that. Lawmakers didn't quite give him what he wanted on that either. They delayed the implementation of that until April of 2014, and they also, it's a 3-year program, so that'll sunset after 3 years unless they pass it again. So he's out talking about that, clearly in campaign mode, running for re-election, even though he's got over a year and a half before he goes before voters again for re-election. The main thing that I think, it's really all about jobs, which is what he initially ran on. And as long as the economy continues to improve, he'll be able to continue to tout improving economy. And by the way, he got a big boost last week when Hertz, the rental car company, announced it's moving its headquarters to Southwest Florida, Estero. It's 700 jobs they're promising. The state had to pay a little bit for it, $84 million potentially in incentives. It's county and local incentives in addition to state incentives. So it's a lot of money, but it has benchmarks, says they've got to create the jobs to get all that money. and it's tax breaks. It's not, all upfront cash. But, that could go a long way in helping Governor Scott. Of course, he doesn't need a whole lot of help in Southwest Florida. They tend to vote Republican, but that kind of thing is the kind of thing he's going to be pushing over the next several years or next 2 years as he goes into the reelection campaign. And if the unemployment rate continues to drop, I think it's going to be hard to run against him. Of course, we don't really know yet who's going to run for governor on the Democratic side against Governor Rick Scott. It appears like it's going to be the summer of Charlie Crist, watching former Republican Governor Charlie Crist to see what he's going to do now that he's a Democratic former Governor Charlie Crist. He's a Democrat, and he's making all kinds of signs that he's going to jump into the race for governor. Some people thought he might do it at the King Kennedy fundraising dinner put on by the Hillsborough County Democratic Party this past week. He did not do it, but he sounded very much like a guy who's laying the groundwork for a run for governor. And he also might do it at the Jefferson Jackson dinner, which is the big fundraising dinner that the state Democratic Party has in South Florida. That's coming up in June. It's going to be a series of watching Charlie Crist appearances to see whether he's in or not. He really does sound like a guy who's planning to run for governor, but he hasn't announced. Now, the other thing we're obviously watching for is whether he sets up a campaign finance organization. If he sets up a committee to raise money, well, then he's running for governor. But knowing Charlie Crist, I don't think he's just going to quietly get in the race for governor. He's going to make a splash when he does it. The only question is if he does, and the only question is when that would be. I don't know for sure that he's going to do it, but he sure sounds a lot like a candidate.